kind of hating life, moping around, not, just being an empty shell. No, he wants soldiers, like I said. He wants soldiers that are going to endure hardness for him, right? That's what he needs, and that's what we need in this day and age now. You know what? When I was looking at all those pictures from the fair, and all you young people going out there and preaching and leading people to the Lord and stuff, you young people and some of you old people too, right? I'll include you guys in there. That's good. That's what we need in this world nowadays. And you know what? That's you guys enduring hardness for Christ. That's a perfect example of that. Okay? And that's what the Lord needs. That's what he wants, right? So let's see here. All right, we got to get going here. Oh, man. All right, look at, let's see here, 2 Timothy chapter 4. Go there real quick. So now we're going to talk about hardness of serving the Lord, okay? Because, again, that's the reality, guys. I don't think anybody sold you that the Christian life was going to be just easy peasy, like, ooh, flowers, sunshine, rainbows, no problems ever. Hopefully that's not why you got saved, right? There has to be a little negative in there, right? There has to be sin in there. There has to be hell in there. And if you want to get the full gospel, if you want to get saved, right? But again, if that's what your impression was, or if that's what your expectation is of the Christian life, I'm sorry, I'm here to tell you that's not true. Okay, that's not true. All right? What did I tell you to go? 2 Timothy chapter 4. So you're gonna go through some persecution, okay? And we go through all these stories in the Bible, and you read through it, people getting stoned, people getting beat, shipwrecked, all this stuff, right? And that's good for us to know, right? Those are good examples of how we should deal with issues in our lives, right? But realistically speaking, you might say, oh, well, I'm never going to go through something like that. Okay, I'm never going to get hung up on a cross because of my faith. Probably not in this country, but I know it happens in other countries, even now, right? But again, for the modern American Christian right now in this day and age, you're probably not going to go through that type of persecution, but you are going to go through other types of persecutions, right? And I know if I talk to each and every one of you guys, you could probably tell me in your mind right now what persecution that is in your life. Because I can come up here and say, oh, it could be friends, it could be family, it could be work, it could be whatever, okay? I don't know, that might be that for some people, but I'm sure each and every one of you can think of it right now where you're dealing with persecution for being a Christian, right? Amen. How long are you going to endure that? Right. Yeah. When are you going to call it quits? How much of that can you take before you throw in the towel and you're like, you know what, I'm done with this Christian life, right? Okay. You got to withstand some sound doctrine. You got to withstand some hard preaching. That's part of enduring hardness for Christ. You know that? Look at 2 Timothy chapter 4. I think I told you to go to. And look at verse 1. We'll go quickly through this. It says, I charge thee therefore before God and Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom. Look at verse 2. Preach the word. Be instant in season, out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort. Reproving and rebuking, that's kind of negative for the flesh, right? There's the exhort in there, but there's reprove, rebuke, and then exhort, okay? With all long suffering and doctrine, look at verse 3. It says, for the time will come when they will not what? Endure sound doctrine. Okay, guys? And we're living in that age now, and it's going to keep getting worse and worse, but you know what? People are not going to want to endure the hardness of sound doctrine, of good preaching, like you get in this church. Okay? And I know you guys know this, but we have a good pastor. We have a good pastor. And, there's a reason why people are trying to move from, and they have moved from all over the country to be in this church, because it's rare, right, that you get sound doctrine preached from the pulpit nowadays. Right. But again, that's part of enduring hardness. You might say, oh, I love it. I like it. I love the preaching that we get here, and that's good. But you know what? What about when pastor preaches a message that targets you specifically, and you're like, man, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, right? I know for a lot of people it's music, right? or the stuff you're watching or social media or whatever. I don't know what it is for you. But there's going to come a time when pastor preaches on something, the Lord puts it on pastor's heart to preach a certain thing that's directly you. How are you going to react? Are you going to endure it? Right? Because like I said, right there, it tells us that there's going to be a time when they won't endure sound doctrine. Christians aren't going to want to hear that stuff. I'm sure you all know some people like that. I know some people. Well, they call themselves, and they're saved. They're Christians, right? But they come to this church, and they're like, man, I don't know if, it's a little too out there for me. It's a little too extreme. It's like, oh, I don't know. Right? Why? Because they can't endure sound doctrine. Okay? And there's going to come a time. Just wait. Just wait. Give it some time. But again, how are you going to react when that time comes? When that message is directly at you, and you're like, man, I didn't want to hear that, but I needed it. And you're just going to endure, and you're not going to give up. You're not going to stop. Okay? Again, enduring hard preaching isn't easy. Even Jesus, right? Over there in John chapter 6, you don't have to turn there. When he's declaring himself to be the bread of life, when he's declaring himself that only through him is everlasting life received. You know what happens in verse 66? In verse 60 it says, many therefore of his disciples, when they had heard this, said, this is an hard saying. And then in verse 66 it says, from that time many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. It's a hard saying. And some of his disciples are like, you know what? No, it's not worth it. I'm not going to endure that. Okay? So don't think like, oh, that's not going to be me. I'm never going to get to that point. Just wait. Just wait. But that's when the true intentions of who you're enduring for are going to come out. Right? Again, hardness of serving the Lord, persecution, withstanding sound doctrine, resisting the flesh. Okay? Basic Christian duties. Again, I'm not going to go into all these for sake of time. Maintaining your testimony. Like, all that stuff is hard. It's not easy. Okay? It was never meant to be about, oh, I go to church, that's good enough. I go to church every Wednesday and Sunday, that's good enough. No. Right? That's not completing your basic Christian duties. That's maybe completing one of them. Right? So again, it doesn't have to be complicated, but living the Christian life isn't easy. Living the Christian life isn't easy. Let's look at Romans chapter 5. Let's see here, how am I doing on time? So we looked at hardness of sin, hardness of serving Jesus Christ, right? Neither of them are easy. So don't believe that lie, right? But look at Romans chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. God allows you to suffer some hardness for him. He allows it. There's a reason why he allows it. Okay? Verse 3, it says, and not only so, but we glory in tribulations, also knowing that tribulation worketh what? Patience. And patience experience, and experience hope. And if you remember, you go back to 1 Peter chapter 2, where we started, where it says, but if when you do well and suffer for it, and ye take it what? Patiently. This is acceptable with God. Okay? So we have to come to the realization, guys, that suffering for him, when we're living for him, he allows it. And it's acceptable to him. He's okay with it. Right? He's okay with it. You guys that aren't parents, maybe you don't know it yet, but one day if you do, you will know this. Man, when you see that kid going through some issues, you see that kid struggling with something or getting hurt or whatever, man, it hurts you. It hurts. Makes you want to cry, right, when you see that. But you know what? It's necessary sometimes. You kind of just got to take a step back and be like, okay, you got to learn, right? And that's how God sees it. And again, he allows these things, right? For one reason or another, he allows it. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to take it patiently, right? And if you take it patiently, you'll learn some things. I know, man. You can ask my wife. And I'm open with you guys. Okay, I'm not the most patient guy. All right. Whenever I'm at work, like things need to get done, they need to get done quick. All right. It's hard being patient. Okay, it's hard being patient. And maybe it's something that men struggle with more or whatever. I don't know, but I know I struggle with that. Okay. You'll be patient with something that you know is unavoidable, and it's just, you're not going to get rid of it. You need to learn to be patient with it. That's right, amen. Right? Kind of wrap your head around that a little bit. If you think, oh, it's something that I can avoid and something, you're going to, you're not going to be patient with that. Right? But when it's a situation or it's a person or whatever, when you're like, you know what, I just got to learn to live with it, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to learn to be patient. Right? And one of those things, again, could be kids. You're going to have to live with them. Right? So you better learn to be patient. Am I right? So again, but what does Jesus Christ call us to do? To suffer for him and endure hardness patiently, with patience. Okay? It's acceptable to him. All right? It's what he wants for us, and he allows for us. I think once you think about it in that way, and you realize those things, it changes your perspective on some of the situations in your life. Right? Because right away what we're wanting to do, what our flesh wants to do is like, oh man, I'm going through this hard situation. Oh, the Lord's going to get me out of it, and he's just going to stop it and all that. No, maybe he's going to let you sit in there for a little bit. Amen. So you can learn some things. Right? I can't say one blanket thing like, oh, it's because of this or he's going to do this. I don't know. Only God knows that stuff, right? But who knows? Maybe you just got to learn how to take it patiently, right? If you're living for him. And then it is possible, okay? It might not seem like it, but it is possible to endure hardness patiently for him. It's possible, guys. We can follow his example, Christ's example. Go back to 1 Peter chapter 4, and we're coming to a close here, guys. 1 Peter chapter 4, but look at verses 1 and 2. It says, "For as much then as Christ hath suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same" what? Mind. "For he that suffered in the flesh hath ceased from sin, that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh of the lusts of men, but to the will of God." There's something that Jesus Christ figured out, and he gave us an example of, that we can use to suffer patiently for him and endure hardness for him. Right? I think it's interesting that it says, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind. Right? With the same mind. A lot of it is, what? Mindset. A lot of it is your mind being able to control what your flesh is doing. Okay? There's this guy that, I listen to every once in a while, and I'm not going to say his name because he's, he's not, I don't think he's saved. He's kind of crude, uses a lot of cuss words and stuff, but he's like a Navy SEAL, right? He's like a motivational Navy SEAL guy. So he's a rough around the edges, but some of the stuff he says is like, wow, that's pretty good to apply it to your life in terms of getting things done, in terms of being productive, right? He teaches this thing, it's called the 1 second decision. Okay, it's called the 1 second decision. So what he says is, when he went through BUDS, so that's the training that Navy SEALs have to go through. That's that school that they have to go through in order to become Navy SEALs. During that training, there's a week, it's called Hell Week. Okay? And he said it's like about 130 hours or something, 5 days that you have to go through it, right? And during that week, they're exposed to there's videos of it online, and you can read a lot about it and look into it and stuff. But they're exposed to extreme temperatures. They're exposed to sleep deprivation. They're exposed to, just an exorbitant amount of exercise and just physical, just pain throughout those 5 days, throughout those 130 hours. Okay, and something that he said was really interesting. He said that first hour when you start Hell Week, he said it's like a pep rally. It's like you're linked arms with all your boys, and you're like, oh yeah, let's do it. Everyone's yelling. All the instructors are yelling at you. You're ready to go. You're pumped up. You're hyped up, right? And they do that for a reason. There's like grenades going off, and everyone's yelling, and everyone's cheering each other on, and you're there with your brothers. What I would compare it to is like when you guys left summer camp, when you guys go to summer camp, all you guys are like, oh yeah, let's go on the train, and we're going to sing on the train, and we're going to hand out tracts and all this stuff. That's when you're like, yeah, let's go. You're pumped up. You're hyped up, ready to go. He said, but that's only that first hour. He said that second hour, they shut everything off, right? Everything gets quiet. You know what they do? They take you out and they march you out to over there, the Pacific Ocean, on that beach there. And like I said, there's videos of this. And you all link arms and you kind of lay back with your head down into the water. Okay, so whenever the tide comes in, whenever the waves come up, they're kind of hitting you from the back of the head, and they just engulf your whole face. So he says, you lay down, everything's quiet. That first wave hits you. It's freezing cold, right? All you can think of is, man, I need to go home. Man, I just want to get warm. I just need to get out of here, right? And then you start thinking of, this is only hour 2 of 5 days. This is only hour 2 of 130 whatever hours, right? And that's when people, he says, start failing. That's when people get up and they're like, I'm out, I'm done. Right? And then you're laying there and you're seeing your buddy leaves to your right, your buddy leaves to your left. Okay? You don't know who else is left. You don't want to look up. And you know what? In that time, when you're enduring that hardness, when you're enduring that situation, he says you forget about every reason why you wanted to be there. So he's like, you wanting to be a SEAL, like that's all out. You don't care about that anymore. You wanted to protect your country, that's all gone. Right? All you want to do is just get out, take a warm shower, and just not be in that water. Right? But what he says, which is really interesting, is he says, when you're in that second hour and you start processing how many seconds you have to go through to make it out of Hell Week and move on to the next phase, it's like that's when it starts messing with your mind a little bit. Okay? And for you Christians, you thinking of, man, this is what I'm dealing with right now. This is what I'm struggling with right now. This is what I'm about to give it all up right now because I still have my whole life ahead of me, or I still have all this, or I'm, whatever. That's where that critical moment is for you. That's what he says that what second decision is. He says he has to, the only way he got through that is mentally. He said he was sitting back there with all the instructors who have all their parkas on, because it's cold. They have their coffee, and they're just kind of yelling at you and just watching you. He said mentally he was there, right? But physically he was in that water. And he just knew he couldn't get out of that water, right? But his mind was somewhere else. And once you get out of that torturous mindset where that physical situation that you're in, you can think clearly. And you can make rational decisions. Amen. And you remember why you're there. And you know what's something that he said that was really profound to me, and I really like this, is he says, where are you going to end up if you quit right now? Right? Think about that. If he just gets up and he's like, he gets a shower, he gets his blanket, and then he gets shipped off back where he came from, then he's going to think about, like, man, I lost it. I was right there. Right. If I just held on a little bit longer. Right. So he asked himself, where am I going to be? Where am I going to end up if I quit right now? Right? So there's that mindset, guys. Like it says, arm yourself, right? with that mind that Jesus Christ had. You know what Jesus Christ did when he was up there on that cross suffering for our sins and being tortured? Right? You know what he was thinking about, where his mind was? It was on all of you guys. Amen. You know where his mind was? It was up in heaven with all of us. That's what got him through. Right? And you might say, oh, well, it was God manifest in the flesh, and he was fully man as well. He was 100% man. He dealt with pain. He felt it. And he could have said, you know what, this isn't worth it anymore. Right? But you know what he did? He stopped, and he thought rationally. And he had a mind where he's like, you know what, if I get off this cross right now, where are all of them going to end up? Right? So what do we have to do? We have to arm ourselves with that same mind. Get your mind off those circumstances that you're in right now. Get your mind off yourself right now and just that pain that you're going through right now and that temptation or whatever it is in your situation. Think about how it's going to be worth it one day. Just enduring a little bit longer, resisting a little bit longer, living for Christ a little bit longer. That's the example of Christ. There's a lot of examples in this church right now. A lot of people that you guys can go to, Christians right now, that are enduring things. Okay? And I've told a lot of these young people before, I said, you know what? You need to go talk to some of these older Christians and make relationships with them. Make bonds with them, because you can learn a lot. They've endured some things. Okay? Those are examples that you can use that can help you get through whatever situation you're going through right now. They're gonna allow you to finish the race, right? And when we get up there one day, what are you gonna hear? Well done, thou good and faithful what? Servant. Okay? Look at 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and we'll be done. You know, you kids, you teenagers, you might not want to think about it or you might not realize it or not, but your parents have endured some things. Your parents have endured some hardness for you. Your parents have endured some hardness and they're still here. Right? That should help you and at least motivate you. You should care about that enough. And have enough respect for them and say, you know what, they endured all this and they're still here. And they put up with all my stuff and they're still there. Right? That's not something you guys should take lightly. And I speak to that from experience. Man, the stuff that I put my parents through, but they just kept praying and praying and praying and praying and praying and praying. Right? They endured some stuff. Look at 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 1. It says, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, by the will of God, and Timothy our brother, unto the church of God which is at Corinth, with all the saints which are in all Achaia, grace be to you, and peace from God our Father, and from the Lord Jesus Christ. Blessed be God, even the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies, and the God of all what? Comfort. Look at verse 4. Who comforteth us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble, by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of God. For as the sufferings of Christ abound in us, so our consolation also aboundeth by Christ. And whether we be afflicted, it is for your consolation and salvation, which is effectual in the enduring of the same sufferings which we also suffer. Or whether we be comforted, it is for your consolation and salvation. Look at verse 7. And our hope of you is steadfast, knowing that as ye are partakers of the sufferings, so shall ye be also of the consolation. All right, guys, every head bowed, every eye closed. The piano player will come up. How long are you going to continue suffering and enduring hardness for yourself, for sin, for comfort? What are you going to have to show for it in the end? Look around in this church, guys. Man, there's so many good examples. Maybe not in this church. Look back at your life. Those Christians that just endured. Those Christians that just held up that testimony and held up that flag for Christ. Where do you fall in all that? Do you need some comfort right now? You're going through some tribulation, through some hardness. He'll comfort you. Jesus Christ wouldn't want us to go through that, and he wouldn't call us to suffer for him if he wasn't going to be there for us, if he didn't think we could handle it. He's there for you. He'll be there for you. You're going to be steadfast. You're going to hold on. Christian, are you enduring? How much longer are you going to hold on? Will you decide to suffer a little bit longer for him? Think about it. If you let go right now, where are you going to end up? If you hold on a little bit longer, he's going to make it worth it. I promise. Don't give up yet. All right, guys, let's close out in a word of prayer. Pray you got a blessing out of that. Brother Sean, if you'd close us out, please.